So it's time for our regular look at the latest news from the world of culture and the arts. And to join me, as usual, it is the broadcaster and author, David Oldroyd-Bolt. David, welcome back.
Thank you.
So, as usual, there's a lot been going on. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, it's been a wonderful week for the arts, and we've got a wonderful week coming up. So I think let's start looking forwards. And we have next week the London Piano Festival. This is going into its 8th year. It's at King's Place, next to King's Cross Station, so nice and easy for everybody. And the co-artistic directors are Charles Owen and Katia Apakisheva. The focus of this year will be the 150th anniversary of Sergei Rachmaninoff, the great Russian romantic composer and pianist, and the 100th anniversary of George Ligeti, the Hungarian, who is famous for having written some extremely spiky, wonderful modernistic works, the piano etudes of the 1980s and 90s, but viewers will probably also know his music because it appears in the soundtrack to 2001: A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick.
Yes, and they will probably know a good deal of Rachmaninoff without knowing it.
Rachmaninoff, I'm sure that everybody will know. If you know the song All By Myself, you will know the second movement of the Second Piano Concerto.
I was about to suggest that one.
If you've ever seen Brief Encounter, then you know the Second Piano Concerto because that is the soundtrack.
Yes.
I think he's one of those composers who, ever since he wrote, has been incredibly popular with the public. Critics were very sneery about Rachmaninoff because they thought he was old-fashioned, they thought he was schmaltzy, they thought he was backward-looking, they didn't think he was up-to-date and hard-edged and modern enough.
Yes.
But actually, I think this is not really borne out by listening to the music, as you will, your viewers will hear at the festival.
Absolutely, and this is the kind of festival, I mean, we've spoken about this before, that this kind of thing is often dismissed as elitist and that kind of thing, but it's really not, is it? I mean,
no, it's not at all. The tickets are extremely good value. The music is things that even if you're not familiar with it, you will go and get a great deal out of it, I'm sure. There is a nod to the current problems in Ukraine because there is Vadim Kolodenko, the Ukrainian pianist, giving a recital on Friday evening. And there is also, you know, the wonderful openness of the last morning. On Sunday morning, there is Lucy Parham, the pianist, accompanied by Tim McInerney, the actor, who will be reading extracts from Rachmaninoff's diaries and letters while she plays pieces of his music to tell the story of his life.
Sounds fantastic.
This is something that you can easily take your children to and enjoy very much.
Brilliant. So just remind us, where is that and how can people get tickets?
King's Place in London from the 5th to the 8th of October, that is to say from Thursday to Sunday. You can find tickets on King's Place online, and I really recommend it. It's been going, as I say, now this is its 8th year. King's Place is a wonderful venue, great acoustic, very modern-looking place, but with a superb feeling when you're in there. You really feel like you're part of a community.
Fantastic. David, so what else has been happening? What's caught your eye this week?
Well, I've just got back from Buckinghamshire, which doesn't sound terribly exciting, but it has been the 6th Cliveden Literary Festival. This is held at Cliveden House in Buckinghamshire, which is an extraordinary Charles Barry house built, the third on the site, built in the 1850s in the Italianate style. It looks like something you would find in Florence. And the festival was started by Natalie Livingston, whose husband Ian owns Cliveden House now, and it is now an extremely grand hotel. And Lord Roberts, Andrew Roberts, the historian. It is probably, I would say, the best literary festival in the country. The extraordinary calibre of people coming to speak. For instance, this afternoon you had General David Petraeus, who, with Lord Roberts, has written a book on conflict, the evolution of warfare from 1945 until now in Ukraine. You had Peter Frankopan, the great historian, whose book The Silk Roads was such a hit 10 years ago, and now has written a wonderful book looking at how climate change over history has affected the world.
So there's quite a range here.
Oh, yes, and what's wonderful is that it has become a truly literary festival, not merely a literary festival that's predominantly historical. So the novelist Maggie O'Farrell, who I'm sure many of your readers, your viewers will have read, gave a wonderful and most moving talk about how she came to be a novelist and why she does it. And then you had what I think is possibly the best panel discussion I've ever heard on literature, which was Sir Jonathan Bate, the eminent Shakespeare historian, talking to Catherine Rundell, who's written a book on John Donne, the metaphysical poet, and Nick Laird, the Northern Irish poet. Now, Nick Laird, I'm sure many viewers will be familiar with, but I really, really, really suggest they go and get his latest collection of poems. It's extraordinary.
Well, that sounds fantastic. I mean, Jonathan Bate wrote a fantastic book called Shakespeare and Ovid, which I really, really enjoyed. And then, you know, when you talk about John Donne, he's one of those poets that he kind of takes second place in people's minds to Shakespeare and Marlowe and the people they know. But actually, some of his works are absolutely incredible and you know, still so readable.
Yeah, well, Donne falls sort of into two categories. There is the John Donne who was the Dean of St. Paul's and whose sermons were extraordinary works of fire and blast and brimstone.
Yes.
And if you go read them now, there's an extraordinary sermon to a newly married couple, essentially saying that everything is now sin. Sin, sin, sin. That's it. No, happiness to the married couple. No, well done. Go off and enjoy your honeymoon.
That should be out at every wedding ceremony.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's an extremely bleak and wonderfully English way to look at the institution of marriage. But then there is the metaphysical John Donne, the man who, and you're the English DPhil, you should be able to explain this better than I, but the man who explores the imagery of poetry in a way that Philip Sidney and Marlowe and Shakespeare hadn't done yet,
yes.
and who I think really breaks the mould. And is not really appreciated at the time greatly, but I think has, certainly since Dr. Johnson onwards, has become very much part of the central canon.
Absolutely. And there's another story you wanted to quickly cover.
Yes, well, this sort of links in as we're having a literary day, which is Gregory Doran, the Artistic Director Emeritus of the Royal Shakespeare Company, who has said basically that he thinks that things like sensitivity warnings and awareness of that nature, is saying, for instance, in a production of Richard III, there's going to be a balloon bursting at some point.
Yes.
Just goes far too far and ruins the point of going to the theatre, which is to be surprised.
Violent. There might be some violence in Richard III.
Well, you would expect so of a man. Yeah. Murdered his nephews. Let's not let's think what happens when they watch Coriolanus.
Yeah, or Titus Andronicus.
Or Titus Andronicus, eating the heads. Dogs eating out the eyes. But I think this is good because it's someone who is known for being fairly progressive. When he was director of the Royal Shakespeare Company, artistic director, there was a season that was all women directors. There were gender fluid castings. He has really explored this and has intellectual bases for doing so. But he's also said, look, there are points now where this is just ridiculous.
Well, I mean, that kind of thing is absolutely fine, but it's just when everyone is doing it all the time, it just feels bland, frankly.
Well, exactly.
And it's good that, as you say, he's associated with the RSC, but the RSC at the moment are pretty guilty of this, aren't they?
Yes, they are. I mean, I think, certainly every time I go, I think, wouldn't it be nice to watch a Macbeth that's set on a Scottish heathland rather than in a car park in Basildon?
Well, that'd be quite radical now, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Just go back to actually what's in the play, or, Hamlet that's in Denmark, rather than pretending that it's a girl who's a boy who's a girl.
Yes.
As we know, there was a lot of what you might call gender fluid casting. All the female parts were played by young boys. This was part of the Elizabethan and Jacobean stage. Yes. But that doesn't mean that you have to entirely upend the thing and never see the, as it were, the classic productions. Shakespeare is relevant now and everywhere because he is the most extraordinary writer this language has ever produced.
Yes.
You don't need to turn it on its head in order to make it relevant to now.
No, it makes it it limits Shakespeare if you are just interpreting him through this very narrow ideological lens that happens to be fashionable over the last 10 years. It's very boring.
Well, but this has always been done to Shakespeare. He's a man who's more sinned against than sinning in this regard, because in the 18th century and 19th century, the plays were given happy endings so that people enjoyed it more, or they were cut down deeply. And I think every age tries to adapt great art to itself, but actually the better thing to do is to appreciate the great art in itself, rather than trying to make it about us.
Well, David, just to quickly finish, I believe you have something to read for us.
Well, I think so. It would be a shame to talk about John Donne and not quote possibly his greatest poem, and certainly one that all of your readers will know. No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as any manner of thy friends or of thine own were. Any man's death diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee.
David Oldroyd-Bolt, everyone. Thank you so much.